Grounding is the idea that our body can heal itself, improve sleep, reduce inflammation, and tons of other health claims just by touching the ground. Sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? There are people that swear by it, claiming it's the most important health discovery ever, and others that are skeptical, calling it the modern day snake oil with a goal to just sell expensive products and take advantage of people. So is this truly the most important health discovery ever, or a bunch of bullshit? In this video, I'm gonna do my best to unbiasedly answer this question. I'm gonna break down the arguments on both sides, and at the end give my opinion and conclusion to what I found after deeply diving into this topic. I can tell you there's a lot that I disagree with, and important things to think about if you're either going to buy a grounding mat or want to incorporate grounding in your life as a health practice. So let's explain what earthing is, the history of how it came into the modern world, and all of the health claims that go along with it. The simple way to explain earthing or grounding is that the earth maintains a negative charge, and your body, when not touching the earth, maintains a positive charge. The argument is that humans throughout history were barefoot, sleeping on the ground, touching the earth, and modern day humans are doing the exact opposite. They're indoors, sleeping on lifted beds, wearing shoes, and rarely ever grounded, and therefore holding on to that positive charge. There's a book that dives into the concept of grounding in grave detail, and it's called Earthing. And in the book, they state that the rise in chronic health issues over the last 60 years also come at a time where more and more individuals are spending time indoors, wearing shoes, and rarely grounded and connected to the earth. And the simple solution that might fix some of these problems is to touch the earth, connect to the earth, and become grounded. And to me, when I heard this, I was a bit skeptical because I think there's a lot going on that's causing our chronic health issues in the modern world, and a lot of things have changed, not just being inside more. So is this true that a lot of our health problems could be fixed by just doing something as simple as touching the ground? The history of grounding could go as far back to the long Chinese history and their views of heavenly and earthly qi, but I want to focus on the modern world and how the trend of earthing came to be. In the 1800s, Adolf, considered one of the founders of naturopathy, wrote a book called A Return to Nature with a huge emphasis on walking barefoot and sleeping on the ground. He says, feet are in a certain sense for man what the roots are for plants. Man draws vital energy and strength out of the earth through his feet. Fast forward to the late 1990s, Clint Ober comes into the picture. Clint worked in cable and broadcast television and realized that the Earth connection stabilizes not only cable TV, but all electrical equipment. And because the human body is incredibly electrical, he thought grounding might be beneficial for humans as well. This led Clint to conduct some experiments on himself and a group of friends using a sleeping mat in their bed that was grounded, and Clint, along with his friends, noticed tons of improvement with sleep. This led Clint to conduct a study in 2000 on 60 participants using grounded mats and testing for placebo. And while this study was not very well conducted by any scientific means, the grounded subjects in this study showed tons of improvements across the board for sleep metrics. And since then, there have been over 30 studies done on grounding and the benefits it can have for our health in various different ways. And a lot of these studies show promising results that earthing is real and can really benefit our health in many different regards. But this is where the skepticism comes into play. The argument people make is that the science conducted in these studies is junk science. If you look at most of these studies, they are either conducted and funded by people that sell earthing mats, they are coming to conclusions and potentially cherry picking the data. And what's really going on, the motivation behind everything, is to sell expensive products and make money. And the studies that are published on this are to convince people that it works, so that way when they do use a grounding mat or practice grounding in their life, they experience a placebo effect. In the late 19th and early 20th century, snake oil was commonly promoted and sold as a cure-all for health problems. Snake oil was typically made by boiling rattlesnakes and skimming off the oil that rose to the surface. And many snake oil salesmen opted to use cheaper and easier to obtain oils instead of real snake oil. As a result, snake oil was essentially worthless as a cure for anything, yet many people believed in the product and purchased it, and they claimed that it worked as advertised. This was attributed to the classic placebo effect, where if someone genuinely believes that a therapy or a product will benefit them, it often does. Which is amazing if you think about it. The mind truly is powerful. Now, as much as I want to believe in creative and natural and free ways to improve my health, I also know that there are bad actors in this world, and people are motivated by greed and money, and sometimes that can affect how people show up and how people sell things in this world. And some of the points that the anti-grounding community was making had merit and a lot of validity to what they were saying. And it did make me start to question what was really going on here. So let's dive into my opinion, my personal experiences with grounding, and my overall conclusion on whether or not this is true, and some things that I agree or disagree with when it comes to grounding. I agree with some of the skepticism in the sense that these are not the best studies I've ever seen. They have a lot of flaws, and they could definitely be motivated by people making money. But when I look at all of the data, scientifically, anecdotally, and my own personal experience, which we'll talk about, I think it points to grounding being real more than it does it being fake. I had a very hard time finding any science that was contrary to grounding, showing that it was fake and not real. Really what I saw was just people's opinions pointing out some valid facts about the movement that I do agree with, but to discredit the entire movement and disregard some well-done studies and also anecdotal or personal experiences, I think is a foolish way to look at this. The fact is that grounding works for a lot of people, and we do have legitimate studies that are done on this that show beneficial results for grounding in many different areas. Now, after doing tons of research, I was able to find some studies that I think the skeptics will like. These were non-biased, controlled trial, double-blinded studies that were also not funded or incentivized by any earthing products. And I think they do a good job of showing just the benefits that earthing might have on an individual's health. The specific one I want to look at is actually looking at the prevention and treatment of a specific infection, which I won't say because of YouTube's algorithm, and how it plays into benefiting it when it comes to earthing. So this study was super interesting. I highly recommend to check it out and read more into it. Also, something to note too, if you go to any NCBI study and go to the bottom, a lot of times they'll note conflicts of interest and also who funded it, if you're curious about that. In this case, there was no funding received for this work, and there was no conflicts of interest to point out in regards to this study. So very interesting in that aspect. And what this study concluded was that earthing or grounding revealed a significant impact in the management of patients with a specific infection. It is a contact with the earth by several means that could cause an influx of electrons into the body with subsequent anti-inflammatory effect, immunity enhancement, anticoagulation, I think that's how you say that, rising blood oxygenation, and antipyretic effect. Now, I'll link this study along with a few others in the description below if you want to take a look at what I would argue are some good unbiased studies on this topic that kind of paint a picture that, hey, maybe something is really going on with grounding, not just anecdotally, not just personally, but also scientifically. Now, where I disagree with the grounding movement and a few things that I noticed in regards to doing some research on this, I think the rise of chronic health issues that we see in the modern day world are contributed to many different things. And I would argue there are actually larger things at play that are causing us to be unhealthy outside of grounding. Basically what I'm saying is I'm confident grounding is beneficial, but I question how beneficial they are claiming it is to be. I started sleeping on a grounding mat in 2019. You can actually see one in this video I posted a long time ago. And I noticed tons of improvements when I used it personally, in my sleep and in other areas of my life. And I felt like it was something beneficial for me, but I don't own any grounding mats now. Going outside barefoot is free. And I think there's a difference between touching these mats and touching the earth barefoot. Even though it might be grounding us in the same way, I think there's more going on that we can't see that could be happening when we are in direct contact with the earth. The specific things I noticed when I prioritize grounding for about 2 to 3 hours per day is improved sleep, improved circadian rhythms, less stress, less anxiety. I feel more grounded, and overall I have more creativity to make things like this. And the last point I want to make too is that there is greater motivation for free, natural ways to improve your health to be wrong than it is to be right. I'm not saying that's totally at play here, but if it's true that grounding is a beneficial thing for your health and it's completely free, there's incentives for the medical system to discourage you from doing that. But with all this information, it comes back to trusting yourself. If your intuition after watching this video says, hey, something about grounding sounds right, and I'm gonna try it and it works for me and I love it and I feel good doing it, then listen to that. And if the same intuition is telling you, I don't know, something's off about this, I don't know if I wanna do that, I think I'll stay inside, then listen to that. And a piece of advice I think we could all benefit from, including myself, is to go outside more, be barefoot more, and reconnect with something that we've lost, which is nature.